Dude, Monster Jam nowadays is so bad. The shows are nothing like they once were. I miss the days when they would let trucks run after braking, there were no unicorns, and they crushed actual cars. Not this lame crap they're doing now. I've seen knitting tutorials more entertaining than this. That's what y'all want to hear, right? Well, too bad. Yeah, this is gonna be a different type of video. This is kind of an opinion piece. I don't know how long this will end up being, but yeah, I don't actually hate modern Monster Jam. Now look, don't get me wrong either, I do have some criticisms for the current format, and I'll get to it, but I want to take some time today, as someone who has followed this league for, 23 years now, I think, in some delusional way, I have a bit of authority to speak on this. So, let's get started. I want to open up with a story. I remember watching one of Digger fan JSB's Moss Trucks in the 80s videos back when I was a kid, and the comments very much mirrored what you hear today. Moss Trucks aren't what they used to be, Moss Jam is ruining the sport, and things are way more terrible now. Pray tell, what year was it that had people in a fury about the state of the sport? That's not a typo. I don't mean 2018, 2008. An era and a year, specifically, many fans look back at with reverence, I saw getting hated on. While I don't have proof because a lot of his original uploads got struck by one of YouTube's many copyright plagues, I do distinctly remember seeing this comment. Basically, my point is, people being mad that X time is awful and Y was better has been going on for well over 15 to 20 years. Hell, if forums existed during the 80s and 90s, people would have thought Bigfoot 8 is the death of the sport. That's why whenever I hear people wax poetic for the past, I don't really put that much weight behind it. The goalpost is always moving. You'll see this with any sport. The present sucks, and the past was better because reasons. Now, for myself, I would say Monster Jam's golden era was between 2002 and 2012, which, of course, is when I grew up with the sport. People will always be nostalgic for what they saw as a kid and think that's the best because they haven't been turned jaded by getting older and having to file taxes. However, even I have to admit, there are parts of the modern era I find more enjoyable now. First, the biggest praise I have to give is the level of competition. More than any other time in the history of Moss Trucks do I feel there is a congregation of talent so strong that week to week, you never know who will win. Back even in what I feel like were the glory days, a win from a truck not named Maximum Destruction or Gravedigger was rare, but now it's pretty common. I wouldn't call many of the trucks on the tours nowadays field fillers, especially as you move into the stadiums. While I do have an appreciation for the likes of trucks like Full Bore, Godzilla, and Freedom Force, those trucks were never really going to make Tom or Dennis sweat, if I'm being honest. The level of pedigree on hand is nothing short of incredible. This goes to my next point, the tracks themselves. Now, this will be controversial because perhaps the single biggest complaint is the lack of crush cars, which Jack Meredith and Samson MT Fan explained the geopolitical context of this further, so I won't go over much here, but honestly, I actually kind of like the fact that tracks are more dirt focused, because it means the quality from truck 1 to truck 12 are the same. It helps give a more even playing field from driver to driver. Plus, also, too, how many promotions use crush cars frequently anymore? Toughest, Throwdown, Hot Wheels, I mean, besides some rare instances, that's kinda it. And also, too, like, let's be real, look at tracks like this, and then complain about the arena pod. I know people complain about how they puncture BKTs, like a bit of constructive criticism punctures my ego, but honestly, I do like the fact that the track more times than not stays the same, helping each driver get the same opportunity to strut their stuff. A more recent bit of praise I have to give, which to be fair I have seen this be pretty universal, is the live streams. Now every event can be watched in full from your own screen week to week, giving unprecedented access to following along the action at home. I think this is one of the best moves they have made in years, as now if you're not able to afford travel or to go to events constantly, you can still get the same experience from home. There are some exceptions, but that's more to venue restrictions than that of Moss Jam themselves. Still though, this is definitely the best decision they've made since the turn of the decade. One criticism I see a lot is Moss Jam is too goofy, too kid-like. First of all, do you know where you are? Even I, as an old fart nearing 30, recognize this sport's primarily for kids, but okay, sure, you see a unicorn on the track and have that sentiment. Do y'all remember Monster Wars? Yeah, Monster Wars, the goofy show with horrible acting as a wrestling-esque style storyline. The action was really good, and I do appreciate it and enjoy it, but I dare you to watch those pre-race characters and not cringe so hard your spine shrinks a couple inches. Hell, the earliest merchandise for the sport was a Playskool toy of Bigfoot designed for kids. The sport has always been tailored to kids. And sure, it can be seen as more parent today, but to act like this is some sort of sophisticated, distinguished sport for manly men that has now been geared for 5-year-olds is kinda wrong. Another one is fan judging. Now, look, I'm no defender of Judge's Zone, but also go watch shows like Montreal 2005, St. Louis 2006, or Indianapolis 2001. Fan judging has always been a mess. I do think because of the consequence of better competition, scores are naturally closer and ergo this can lead to controversy. I don't like the fact that a lot of times the first really great runs win out and then it's diminishing returns. But let's be real, if the competition was as strong in the early 2000s and it wasn't just Tom and Dennis above everyone else, we'd probably be having the same conversation. That being said, I do have a proposed solution. Here is Charlie's half-baked, probably made on Psychedelic's new judging system, or Chaboombages. The title's a work in progress. You know how they have expert judges at events now? Get 3. People have to fill in an application online, then you have to answer trivia questions at the event to show you know what you're talking about. There are 4 scores, one for the amount of time filled. This can be done automatically. Second is flow. How well was your run? Was it tilted or was it smooth? Third is variety. How varied were your tricks? Was it a one-trick pony run, or did you try to spice things up? Fourth is wow factor. How legitimately exciting and memorable was your run? Did you have a wild save, or something along those lines? Accrue this to get a score of 40 using the same sliding scale to help differentiate. So now that I've defended Moss Jam, I probably sound like a shill. Some of y'all may even think I'm being paid by the company. Brother, have you seen my bank account? For the sake of fairness, I do have criticisms of Moss Jam. Just because I spent however long defending it, doesn't mean I can't also deliver some critique of my own. Here's one thing that's always irked me. Why is there no variety in the designs anymore? I'm not talking from IP to IP, but within them. Like, remember how in 2013 we had a red, yellow, and black El Toro Loco? Or in 2016 we had a gray, red, gold, and yellow Max D? Well, besides the World Finals since 2017, they've done away with this, and honestly, I've never been a fan of this. We have 6 Megalodons, and aside from some chassis differences for the Independents, I can't tell any of them apart. You mean to tell me you can't adjust the color palettes and give it a little extra flavor? It doesn't need to even be anything dramatic, but just something to help the fans tell apart Angelina's Meg from Ashley's. I liked at the World Finals last year they put different El Toro Loco schemes on Joe and Jamie's trucks, but can we, have that all season, please? Next is a more timely one, the dumpster and clock rules. Basically, for those that don't know, especially this past season, if a truck hits a dumpster, even with any contact, the run is over, shut off, and not allowed to refire. This primarily has come off of backflips, which to me means they should probably reformat the backflip ramps entirely. I do like how a track like Miami or even some parts of Atlanta have it to where there may only be one approach, but it doesn't make a straight bounce into a container as likely. Next is the rule of if you go over 2 minutes, you're going to be docked points. Yeah, I got nothing to defend this. This is horrendous. They don't need to go for 6-minute runs, but if they go over 10 to 20 seconds, is it really the end of the world? And a final criticism I have is of the points format. Not even that I think the format themselves are wrong, but there's no stakes to it. Okay, look, here's an example, right? Looking at the World Finals roster, when you looked at who got in and who didn't, how, looking at points, Devin Winfield was snubbed, but Cody Saucier and Brianna Mahan were put in. Or how out of the Arena East Tour, the only driver that wasn't the champion to get in was Kristen Anderson despite her finishing 5th. And look, this is not a slight against any of these drivers, but I don't really know how a points format is going to really be anything worth following along when it's not even guaranteeing that a high placement is going to get you a spot in the World Finals. And plus, also too, besides people like John Zimmer Jr., which, to be fair, that was a massive accomplishment. I wouldn't have just got done talking about it if I didn't think so. Were we really surprised by any of the champions? Even if the likes of Tristan England, Ryan Anderson, or Weston Anderson had an absolute dog water season, do you really think they would have gotten a snub from the World Finals? It just doesn't give the points format any bite, any teeth to it. I don't really have a great solution for this. I thought about the idea of an Indy 500 style open qualifier for anyone who isn't a defending champion or tour champion to give more stakes. I know sponsorships and all that other stuff play into effect, but I don't know, this is just kind of a thing where I've always felt like following along the points battle just doesn't really resonate that much in a lot of cases, just because of how honestly little it kind of matters at the end. So where does this rambling video leave? Look, there are definitely things I would change about Moss Jam, and I think it's good to discuss and be able to criticize the organization and not blindly accept it. However, I think it's also good to recognize what's been done well and not immediately assume everything is crap because Scott Douglas isn't on the call or that Tom Meents isn't driving anymore. Have some critical thinking and moderation. Nothing is ever perfect, but I still appreciate Moss Jam for what it is. I can't sit here and bash it when I'm scheduled to attend 3 events this year, and quite frankly, I feel like anybody else who does this is a massive hypocrite. How can you go about bashing it, not criticizing it, but just bashing it consistently, and yet still shell out your money? If you think Moss Jam is legitimately that bad, then show it with your wallet. Otherwise, I'm sorry, you don't have much of a leg to stand on. There are things that need to be improved, I definitely understand that, but I also think having a bit more of a nuanced view is probably the best way to go. What do y'all think? What would you change? Or, do you think Moss Trucks died after 1994 and have been hate watching for as long as I've been alive? Do you think I'm a raging buffoon that has no idea what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments. And with that being said, I've gone off track, and I'll see you all next time.
Why are you so negative all the time?